Today on Talking Solutions, it's National Preparedness Month. We got our friends from the American Red Cross, Frank Rutkowski, also Fernandez Leary.
Greetings.
Glad to have you guys both in here.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for having us.
I know that we just went through September 11th, and I wonder, does that have something to do with September being National Preparedness Month?
No, I think the Preparedness Month came before that event. We've always been doing it in September.
But now it has a special meaning.
Yeah, it does, because you never know when an event's going to happen, so you always want to be prepared.
Exactly. People think that being in Las Vegas and here in southern Nevada that we are immune. We have had an earthquake that closed a highway during rush hour, flash floods, the big fire up on Mount Charleston. We're still getting the after effects of that. So if people think that southern Nevada is not prone to emergencies, think again. Frank, what should we all do as individuals? Because obviously, we're not ready for this. You're here to help us get set up, right?
Yeah, you never know when a disaster's going to strike. So you want to have a 72-hour kit. That means you have food and water for 3 days for every person in your family, and even pets. You don't want to forget about pets, because when things are going crazy, it's really hard to forget about pets and where they are. You have to make sure that you know where they are and you know where to take them. Things that you should have in your kit are radios, especially hand crank radios or battery-powered radios, because you might not have access to electrical outlets.
Who knows where you're going to be or what power will be existing when the disaster comes upon you. I think it's interesting to talk about the pet situation, because I know, being a pet lover, I would feed my animal before I'd feed myself. Absolutely. I'm wondering if maybe, Frank, if there is a place on your website where we can see exactly what we would want to put into that 72-hour disaster preparedness kit.
Yeah, you can find all that information on redcross.org, and you can also download the emergency app by Red Cross. There we have information on 35 different types of disasters, information on what to do before, during, and after disaster strikes, all in the palm of your hand.
I moved here years ago from Seattle, and even though you wouldn't think about it, Seattle, that was the first place that I lived that actually talked about being prone to earthquakes. One thing that I don't think everybody is aware of, as far as our home state, is that we are the third most seismic state in the U.S. Do people actually stop and think about that?
No, they don't. And another thing for your emergency kit is a whistle, because if a structure collapses during an earthquake and you're yelling for help, your voice goes hoarse after a very short time. So you want a whistle to let people know where you are and that you're trapped and you're still there and you need help.
I wouldn't have thought about that. During September, it's Disaster Preparedness Month. What kinds of things have you been doing?
In this area, we respond to a disaster every 19 hours. Most often, they're home fires. So we've been canvassing areas, trying to install smoke alarms in homes that don't have them, or trying to replace batteries so they have working smoke alarms, because that's really important. When a fire starts, you have about 2 minutes to get out. A smoke alarm just saves you those precious seconds to get to safety. And in addition to the smoke alarms, if they have them, we make sure that they have an evacuation plan for their home. 2 exits out of every room. Sometimes when a fire happens, an exit's blocked. We don't want people to think about how they're going to get out. We want them to know, all right, this exit's blocked, we're going to go out this way now.
One of the things that you were talking about before we started today, Frank, was some kind of a cooking competition. What is this all about?
In the city of Henderson, they hosted the Emergency Kit Cook-Off, and that was a really fun time, and we got to spread awareness about how important it is to have an emergency kit. Actually, Fernandez was one of our chefs for that, and our CEO, Scott Emerson, were paired with a chef to make a meal out of a 72-hour disaster preparedness kit. They came up with some great things. I think Clark County won that event. They won the Golden Emergency Preparedness Kit.
You even had a little trophy or a little plaque or something, or a certificate to say that they did the best. Fernandez, you were part of this competition. What were you up to?
I thought you were going to ask what was I thinking, because I think we did that once we got started. It was great, Terry, I'll be honest with you. There were 7 or 8 different organizations, and we had Mayors Goodman, Mayors Lee, and Hafen that were judges for the competition. And as Frank said, we were paired with some chefs. So we have some really seasoned chefs, but we were paired with a young lady from the Culinary Institute. So it was a lot of fun. And our specialty, I don't remember exactly what we called it right now, but it was Southwestern pasta or something. And so we made it on a little camp stove and just had some basic ingredients that you could use out of the preparedness kit. It was a lot of fun, I think, for both the participants and also the judges and the crowd that was there.
Frank, you actually are the public information officer for the American Red Cross for our chapter here in Las Vegas. Fernandez Leary, what is your title?
My title is Regional Disaster Officer. I'm responsible for the Disaster Services Division of the Red Cross in the Nevada region. That's the entire state. We have 2 offices, one down here in Las Vegas, the other one is in Reno. And I have a couple of folks that work for me that we are to administer the disaster program. More specifically, when folks are displaced from their home, burnt from their home, or floods, or whatever the case may be, my group is responsible for setting up shelters, temporary housing for these folks, also going to their homes and providing financial assistance by the graciousness of our donors.
Donations to the Red Cross makes everything possible, doesn't it?
It makes 100% everything everything possible. We can't do it without donors. It's that simple. And that's large donors, large corporations that donate a lot of money, but even more so the individual donors. We try to be good stewards of that money that comes from national organization, our national headquarters, all the way down throughout the organization. Our volunteers are very important as well. 97% of our workforce are volunteers. And I'll tell you, we cannot do our mission without volunteers. It's a great organization.
You mentioned that a lot of the things that you do through the disaster response have to do with people being burned out of their homes. It seems like on the news all the time we're hearing about another apartment complex and a number of families are displaced. And Frank, you also said that it is only hours between each of these incidents that you respond to with the American Red Cross.
That is true. It's very unfortunate. I mean, fires are the number one hazard here. Frank mentioned the Home Fire Preparedness Campaign, which is an awesome program. It's, again, from the national organization. The goal of this program is to reduce the number of deaths and injuries by 25% over the next 5 years. And that is by doing preparedness information, as he mentioned, the exit drills from the home, and installing the smoke alarms. And so we're very proud of that particular program. But again, fires are the number one hazard that we have here in Nevada.
I know as far as our home, we have more than one type of fire extinguisher, and they are currently up to date. There's got to be situations where you come across people who say, well, I've had a fire extinguisher in the house for years, and it turns out to be 20 or 30 years. Is there a time frame where we need to actually look into maintaining those items?
When you buy an extinguisher, it has a time frame of how long it will last. But I think a good rule of thumb is at least every 6 months or every year when you change your clocks. That's an excellent time to review fire extinguishers, excellent time to look at the batteries in your smoke alarms, to look at all your preparedness items. Every 6 months would not be a bad time to do that either.
Finally, some reason that makes sense for me changing the clock. I'm one of those millions of people who go, well, why are we doing this again? Fortunately, the husband takes care of it. But yeah, checking the batteries in the smoke alarm, also carbon monoxide detector, so that we're not all caught unaware as we're sleeping.
Absolutely, because that's when people actually die during fires. It's not the fire itself per se. It is when they're sleeping and smoke alarms, because if people are awake, typically you'll see a fire. I mean, don't get me wrong, they happen, but it's when you're sleeping. Electrical short will occur, or refuse that's put into the trash that's still hot, or whatever the case may be, ashes or whatnot, whatever the case may be. Those are when you're going to have your fires.
Basically, you're not aware of what's going on. We're talking with the American Red Cross right here in Southern Nevada today because it is National Preparedness Month. The sort of things that we would have in our disaster preparedness kit would include, as you said, 72 hours worth of supplies, food, water for everyone in the family, including the animals in our household. We don't want to forget the pets. Other things that we might have inside, flashlights, batteries, you're talking about radio. If you could even get a crank radio, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. More things would be like gloves, a poncho, blankets, and if you have special medical needs, you want to make sure you have at least a 7-day supply of medicine that you need that's specific to you, and anything else that you might need, like a walker or a wheelchair, you want to make sure you have that ready to go next to an exit so you can just grab it, put it in the car, and go.
I think about people who are expecting and there's a pregnant mom in the house and how she's got that suitcase or that satchel that is nearby because they know that the baby's coming pretty soon. So they've got everything they need inside and ready just to grab, jump in the car and go.
Yep, exactly. Just near the garage door or near the front door. You know where it is, just grab it and you're gone.
Maybe put it together and put it in a closet near an exit door. Open the closet and boom, get it, grab it, and go.
Yep, exactly.
Fernandez, did you say 97% of your help is volunteer with the American Red Cross?
That is true across the nation. 97% are volunteers.
So you have basically a skeleton structure. You guys are here to put the programs together and help to execute them. How do you get people coming to you to volunteer? Do they come through service groups, possibly Boy and Girl Scout organizations? I know places like Wells Fargo, Kohl's, different employers have groups of employees who get together to do service to the community.
You hit all of them right there. That's exactly where we get those folks, including church groups as well. As I mentioned, one of the things that we do when people are displaced is that we set up shelters. Well, just recently we trained both the City of Henderson, City of Las Vegas, and the local LDS Church, a number of their employees and members to be shelter workers for us. It is a great resource for us, but a great opportunity, though, for them to learn something that can help their neighbor.
So they don't just come and volunteer cold. You actually put them into some training so that they know what they're doing when they get called upon.
That's true. In fact, all of our volunteers, actually, there is a full intake process. One of the ways to volunteer is to go online, redcross.org, look at the local chapter, and then there's a process that you'll start through with that. And there's a volunteer engagement group that takes care of in-processing and actually a background investigation as well. Then once folks get through that, then they kind of decide, look, here are the jobs I'd like to do. At the volunteer group lets them know this is what's available. And then referred over to the line of service, such mine disaster services. We also have SAF, which is Service to Armed Forces. That's another line of service, a fundraising group. They then, like I said, refer to the manager of that group, and the manager interviews them and puts them to work.
You should think about this. One of the things that we do every week on this show on Talking Solutions is we try to find out from the organizations that we talk with what kind of things we can do to help you. Because we're not so much talking problems as I said, talking solutions. A great solution would be to volunteer and actually be a part of the American Red Cross. And you guys have been around.
I almost want to say 150 years. I should know that. Frank, do you know that?
I think it was Clara Barnes started the American Red Cross in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
In Las Vegas, we've had the American Red Cross here since 1917. So we're actually coming up on our 100-year anniversary.
You're almost as old as the city itself.
Yep.
Wow. How many times, I know that we've had these huge disasters, like we just finished the 10th anniversary of Katrina, the hurricane, the wildfires that are just exploding in the West with all of the drought conditions. How many times do you get called upon as our local chapter of the American Red Cross to also offer people to work for a bigger issue, a bigger cause?
Depending on the incident, of course. Like you said, the wildfires right now, I got a phone call yesterday that one of our volunteers will probably be deploying. He's from the northern Nevada area, but probably be deploying as a staffing manager for that fire over there. So it happens occasionally. I recently went to Texas when Texas had all the flooding. I was there for 2 weeks, and we had a number of folks from Nevada that responded there to assist with that disaster. So it does happen. You look at the bigger incidents, and depending how long they last, people will respond from across the whole organization.
So you end up in a place that is not your home, and you are there to help the people who are going through a terrible situation. I would imagine American Red Cross makes sure that you have a place where you're sheltered while you're there, and you're contributing your time and your efforts so that you all gather in the same place and work together as a team, even though you come from very diverse areas.
That's true, and that's the beauty of the American Red Cross, and again, of the volunteer-based organization that it is. I've had great experiences. I will say this once again, we cannot do it without our invaluable volunteers. They are the workhorse of the organization, and it is an honor to work with volunteers.
To find out more information about the American Red Cross, we've talked about the 72-hour Disaster Preparedness Kit. Frank was telling us about that. Also finding out how you can look into becoming a volunteer. Go through some training, make sure that you're set up and ready to go when that call comes. Also, donations always very important to the efforts of the American Red Cross. Find out about all those things on the website.
Yes, redcross.org.
That's simple enough. Redcross.org. Does your reach go outside the U.S.?
It does. We're not other organizations because we all work together, but the International Committee of the Red Cross and the International Federation of the Red Cross, they're both specific to certain types of international incidents. One has to do with conflict, helping prisoners of war. The other has to do with disasters that happen in other countries like Nepal, and coordinating a relief effort from all of the organizations. Because we're all one Red Cross. We all work together toward the same goal, but we all have our specific areas of work that we do.
Like an international coalition of people who are affiliated with the American Red Cross or the Red Cross in general.
Yep.
To help out with these international incidents.
Exactly.
Well, Frank, how long have you been with the American Red Cross?
I was interning in January, and I was hired in June.
Boom! You did such a great job as an intern.
Yeah.
They said, step up, do the job. And what exactly, as public information officer, what do you get involved with?
I do a lot of outreach to media to make sure that the public is informed on what we're doing to help the community and how they can help us and how they can become a part of our organization.
We talked about the chef's competition with all the items inside that disaster preparedness kit. Do you have any other events that are coming up that you would be inviting people to be part of?
Yeah, if you go onto our local chapter website at redcross.org, you can find a whole list of times we're going to be canvassing neighborhoods to hand out these smoke alarms. And you can actually sign up and register as a volunteer, and you can help us install them in people's homes that don't have them, and you can help us teach them about the evacuation plans.
Does that happen in older neighborhoods where people's homes might not already be fitted with smoke detectors?
Yeah, we have some criteria. So older neighborhoods and just homes that we think might be at risk for a fire, we'll go there and make sure everyone's taken care of.
Smoke alarms don't cost that much, but boy, they're more than worth it, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and these last for 10 years. So as long as you keep checking them and replacing batteries, they'll last 10 years.
Once again, something that you could find out about at the website, redcross.org.
Yep.
And Fernandez, as far as the disaster type events that you oversee, the American Red Cross involvement here locally, aiding in such situations, do you have any, we talked about volunteers, how important they are. Do you have anything coming up as far as training sessions? Are you actively looking to pull more people into the group of volunteers that you have that are active for the Red Cross?
We actually have what's called a Disaster Institute coming up in October. I think it runs October 6th or October 9th, but you can find that information on the website. You don't even have to be a volunteer to actually take those classes. It's helpful. I mean, to get you into the system, but there are 10 to 12 different classes, again, that teach you various functions of the disaster side that people can take, and that will pique their interest if they're so inclined to do more work with the Red Cross.
And if I wasn't going to volunteer, but I was interested in the knowledge, maybe for handling things with my family and our preparedness, we could still attend those classes?
You can.
What kinds of classes? Because you were saying there's a variety.
Ranging from shelter management to introduction to shelter shelters, psychological first aid. What else, Frank? You've taken a few of them.
Disaster Public Affairs.
Yeah, Disaster Public Affairs.
Oh, because you need to spread the word because something big has happened here, and we need to talk to the media, the public in general, about our response, how we're helping, how people affected by, let's just take one that was a while back, like the fires on Mount Charleston, and how people who were fleeing a fire, who needed a place to go, how they go, where the shelters are set up, what you need to do to actually take shelter.
Yeah, we'll have people in multiple different areas in case, some residents have questions or the media has questions, like where our shelters are open, what they should bring. Yeah, it's important to have public affairs people all trained to talk to people and spread a consistent message.
Communication is key. And very often in the news, in the media, you'll be watching TV and you'll hear something about how our local Red Cross chapter has experienced a great number of fires and that your resources are very depleted and that you need people to kick in and donate, and how we can actually assign those donations specifically to fire response, for instance.
Yep. Yeah, you can go onto our website and find the Fire Hurts campaign.
That's right, what it was.
Right in our local website, and donate directly to the residents of Southern Nevada that are displaced by home fires.
That's just tough. That breaks your heart when you see it on the news and you see these people who, with no warning and with only moments, had to flee, take the kids and take the animals, and everything is gone.
Yeah, their lives are turned upside down. So we really want to comfort them and let them know that they're not alone in this, that we're going to do all we can to help them rebuild their lives, because their lives are turned upside down. A lot of people leave their homes without even shoes on. So we want to make sure that all of their immediate needs are taken care of and that they're going to be safe. We're not going to let anyone be homeless after a home fire, and we're going to work with them down the road to make sure they're back on the road to rebuilding their lives.
This community, Las Vegas specifically, and all of Southern Nevada, I find it to be a very giving place. And when we identify a need, people who live here step up and help. People from outside Las Vegas don't get this, but that's okay. This is our community. We may be a tourist town to beat all others, but inside the heart of this community, we are so giving.
Yeah, it's incredible. Even after those thunderstorms in Henderson, people were coming out giving water to the people when they lost electricity and they didn't have air conditioning. People were coming out giving water to them and helping us cool down some people because, it was 110 degrees out and they were hot.
As regional as our weather is here in Southern Nevada, over on this side of town where our Beasley studios are on Durango, we didn't get any rain, yet we're watching the news with help from people like you as the public information officer for the Red Cross. You're talking about how devastating these storms were that came through. I mean, it was crazy over there and absolutely quiet over here. Yet the need for assistance, our entire community needed to step up and help with that.
Spread all across Southern Nevada. Everyone heard and they all wanted to help.
So for the needs of the American Red Cross, when we talk about the donations, you can do it for Fire Hurts. You can do it just to the Red Cross in general. Donations are key. Volunteerism, because you rely so heavily on the efforts of others. You said something like 97% of your help comes from volunteers.
That is true. That is super important. The donation piece, as you mentioned, it's vital. It is absolutely vital. And I've been here a long time as well, been through a number of disasters and seen firsthand how the folks of Las Vegas will support each other. What I will say to that is a lot of times folks want to, provide clothing. They want to provide, water. Water is good. Don't get me wrong. That's a very good thing, certainly in that particular incident. But
sure.
By and large, though, the most valuable commodity, if you will, for us is cash, because we can do more with cash than we can with supplies. We don't have the warehouse space, and just the logistical challenges, the reality of trying to get that stuff out is very difficult. So a lot of folks for the fires, the Carpenter One fires, they provided chapstick and some other items that they had heard the firefighters needed, and it was great, but it was a lot of work trying to get that stuff out. It was very tough. So if people want to help the Red Cross, cash is definitely the best way to go.
One size fits all. It's immediate. When you need something, we've got the money, boom, it's done. So there's no delay in taking care of those needs.
Exactly.
American Red Cross does a lot of things. Is there anything else that we haven't addressed? Because I know mainly we're talking about disaster preparedness during the month of September, but is there anything? You've got the floor.
I want to stay on the preparedness piece just for a second, and then I'll let Frank go ahead and take care of that other piece, because one we didn't talk about, which I think is just as important. We talked about the home fire campaign, but another project that we do is the Pillowcase Project. This is a national project funded by Disney, the generosity of Disney Corporation, and it started in Louisiana after Katrina. There was a chapter out there. The chapter executive noticed that university students were walking away with their possessions in a pillowcase. So she thought about this bright idea of, wait a minute, that means something. There's something there. So she started this program in the schools, 3rd to 5th graders, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, where we have instructors that go in and they bring pillowcases with them and other preparedness material, and the kids learn about preparedness and the ideas for them. They're going to hear about it, they're going to learn it, they're going to practice it, and then they're going to take what they learn home for their parents and share it with them and their other relatives or even friends. They get a pillowcase, they draw on the pillowcase, they personalize the pillowcase, they have some preparedness items that are put in there, and This is how we're reaching out. This is how we're starting very young to get the young folks so that they're not afraid. They also learn coping skills in the event of a disaster, because, it is such a traumatic incident in people's lives that if they can understand that, deal with the stress, they can help themselves and their families. And that's a project we are very proud of as well.
Working with kids, it's such a great idea. I can relate to that because I grew up in tornado country in Kansas. And we used to get the little flyers when we were in grade school. It would tell us what months tornado season is. And I was so scared. I had a real healthy respect for tornadoes, and we did not have a basement in the house. So every year, right at the beginning of tornado season, I used to have a little box underneath my bed with the things that I considered most important in case I needed to grab it and go.
Excellent. Preparedness before we even talked about it.
Well, I appreciate that. That was nice when I was a kid. Have I carried through with that as an adult? No, I need to fix this. We need to get the disaster preparedness kits ready, which would include, Frank, what would you suggest?
I would suggest a 72-hour supply of food and water for every person in the family, radios, flashlights, extra batteries, and other kind of medical needs that you might have, and a 7-day supply of medicine.
We are doing some public service announcements right now on our Beasley stations that talk about family preparedness for emergencies. One of my favorite ones, it's a dad around the table with the family. He goes, kids, this isn't fun to talk about, but we need to talk about it. How ready are we? And he'd say, do we have a supply of food? No. Do we have blankets? We've got a towel. Well, that'll do. And they go through and they figure out that they're not prepared at all. And they talked about, do we know where we will all meet in case of an emergency? And no, they were all off. We're going to be with Aunt Joan, or we're going to be at the library. Nobody was on the same page. So this is something that would be important for families, right? To at least spend a few minutes getting together the things they need and then talking about those emergency exits. Where are we going to meet in the case of an emergency? Things like that.
And it also depends on what kind of emergency. Our area, it's prone to flood. So if you're living in a low-lying area, you want to have a meeting place that's a little bit higher up in elevation and also safe. And you also want to know 2 ways to get there, and you want to know them by heart. You don't want to have to rely on your phone in case data's down, and you just have to know where to go.
It's worth a few minutes to spend time with the family to get this kit together and also to talk about those emergency needs. It's Emergency Preparedness Month. It's the American Red Cross, our Southern Nevada chapter. Fernandez, did I miss anything?
I don't think so, but I do want to make a point, though. When you mentioned about how you haven't...
the box.
Yeah, really haven't done anything at this stage. Because we don't have a lot of incidents here, we really don't, okay? When you look at the national or across the United States, you mentioned Tornado Alley, you look at hurricane area, you look at the Southwest that gets just hit with floods and tornadoes and everything all the time. We're lulled into a false sense of security here. It has happened for years. I was in public safety for 20 plus years. Believe me, I've even done it. And that's the part I wanted to admit, but I don't want to admit, but it's the truth. I have some basic supplies, but am I truly as prepared as I should be? No. And it's because of that false sense. But what I would like to say and try to challenge everyone to do is let's not think that way. Be prepared for the unknown, because you don't want to try to be prepared when it's happening. You're not going to respond very well. And your families and your lives, your neighbors, your relatives could depend and will depend on your ability to process through an emergency and have the supplies and the resources that you need in order to take care of yourself at least that 72 period, as Frank has mentioned a couple of times.
Absolutely. And when we've seen on the news, we're watching far-flung areas where they're getting ready and boarding up windows and things for the approaching hurricane. And you can see that people have gone into the grocery stores, into the Home Depots. All those items that you go looking for at the last minute, they're gone. People beat you to it. All of the bottled water is missing. The bread's gone. All the things that you'd be looking for that last minute help, if you had your disaster preparedness kit ready to go, that would be one big thing off of your mind that you wouldn't have to worry about. Just grab it.
That is true.
It's worth the time. A lot of information on the website. We really should all step up, because I think we've admitted that we are prepared, but not as prepared as we could be. Great source of information, redcross.org, redcross.org. Also, that's the place where you can make a donation. A monetary donation is easy. You can also volunteer, be part of the American Red Cross. You guys get something back. Do you get fulfilling feelings when you help somebody?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. Working alongside volunteers, giving of themselves to help their fellow man. That is a wonderful thing to be a part of. And I'm very proud to be part of this organization and very thankful, as I mentioned before. There's nothing like helping someone else.
Redcross.org. Get information, get your kit ready. You can donate, you can volunteer. How about all of that? I'm for that.
That is perfect. You know, the other thing we didn't mention, though, this is all on the website as well, giving blood, life-saving. That's another way to help the Red Cross. And one more piece I didn't mention that in the preparedness side is that if you have a senior citizens group that you want us to come speak at and talk about preparedness and provide that information, we will be happy to do that. You just need to call, again, through the website, access that information. We can put that together and be happy to do that.
You guys got a lot going on, a lot of good things.
Yes, ma'am.
It is the American Red Cross, our chapter here for Southern Nevada. And as our guest today, Frank Rutkowski and also Fernandez Leary. Thank you so much for being part of today's Talking Solutions.
Thank you, Terry, for having us. It's been a pleasure.